Commerce Alive Today presents
10 even more defunct dead retail stores. The chain was founded by four brothers, Stefan, Lawrence, Marvin, and Douglas Gemmell, in New York City in 1977. Later, it officially changed its name to its well-known advertising slogan, "Nobody Beats the Wiz." During the early to mid-1990s, Nobody Beats the Wiz was a major sponsor for many local NY sports franchises, including the Yankees, Knicks, Mets, New Jersey Nets, Rangers, New Jersey Devils, and Islanders. It also sponsored teams outside the NY area such as the Orioles, Flyers, Whalers, and Canadiens. In 1996, the company threatened legal action against the Major League Soccer franchise the Kansas City Wiz, who were renamed the Wizards as a response. In 1998, after having expanded from roughly 20 stores to over 80 stores in less than a year, the chain filed for bankruptcy and was purchased by Cablevision for $80 million. Cablevision eventually dropped the "Nobody Beats the Wiz" slogan. At its peak, the firm's revenues were $1.4 billion, with 2,000 employees, operating 94 stores in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Maryland, and Massachusetts. It also operated music-only stores in Maryland and the Washington, D.C. area. The chain closed permanently in 2003. A Cablevision press release from February 16, 2003 stated, "Continuing to operate the stores is no longer a viable option for Cablevision as business conditions at the retailer eroded due to a weakened retail economy and other factors." Once the chain closed, one of its founders, Marvin Gemmell, opened a new electronics chain, The Zone, in a number of former Wiz locations. The new chain, which heavily mentioned that it was from the founder of the Wiz, went out of business less than 2 years later. In September 2003, competitor PC Richard purchased the Wiz's assets mainly for its name. Ward Melville created the Thom McAn brand with J. Franklin McIlwain, a New Hampshire shoe manufacturer. The name was inspired by Scottish golfer Thomas McAn. The first Thom McAn retail store opened in New York in 1922, selling a few simple styles at a low fixed price. Within 5 years, 300 stores were open, and by 1939 there were over 650 stores. In 1952, the Melville Corporation acquired the 151-outlet Miles Shoes chain. By 1955, the company operated 850 stores and 12 factories. In 1960, Melville created Meldisco, which was dedicated to leasing and supplying family shoe departments and self-service discount department stores. By the end of the 1960s, Melville was the largest U.S. shoe retailer, operating 1,400 stores. By the 1980s, Melville was still the largest footwear retailer in the U.S. The company had diversified to add such chains as Chess King, Foxmore, and CVS Pharmacy. It began to phase out 6 of its 7 footwear factories in 1983, and in 1985 it closed 72 Thom McAn outlets. In 1988, it purchased the athletic shoe chain Foot Action. In 1992, Thom McAn was down to 730 outlets, and Melville announced that it would close 350. In 1996, Melville closed the remaining Thom McAn outlets, converting approximately 100 of the locations to the Foot Action USA format. As Melville divested its operations to focus on CVS, the remaining footwear operations including Meldisco were spun off into a new company, Footstar. With the closure of the retail outlets, Thom McAn shoes began appearing in Kmart stores, through the footwear departments operated by Meldisco. In 2003, Footstar began selling Thom McAn in 1,500 Walmart stores. In 2005, Kmart owner Sears Holdings reached an agreement with Footstar, which by then was in bankruptcy and consisted almost entirely of the Meldisco-operated footwear departments inside Kmart stores, to let Footstar run the shoe departments through 2008, after which Sears would purchase the remaining inventory at book value. In April 2008, Sears Holdings agreed to obtain Footstar's intellectual property, including the Thom McAn brand name. Media Play was a chain of retail stores founded in 1992 by Musicland that sold VHS, DVDs, laserdiscs, music, electronics, toys, video games, anime, books, and board games similar to Hastings Entertainment, Second and Charles, and half-price books. Each store contained full book, movie, music, and video game sections under one roof. At their height, they operated 72 stores in 19 states with 2,000 employees. The first store opened in Rockford, Illinois, in 1992. Hundreds of stores were slated to be opened, but only 89 ever were. Media Play opened stores from 1992 to 2000. Their Replay program was a loyalty program that allowed members to earn points for purchases which could earn members gift certificates. The same Replay card also worked at Sam Goody and Suncoast Motion Picture Company stores. In 2001, Musicland was purchased by Best Buy Company Incorporated for $696 million as part of its initiative to diversify its retail holdings to reach a larger demographic with its consumer electronics and entertainment products. By then, Musicland numbered over 1,300 stores. Their intention was to transform Sam Goody into a destination for young people looking for hip electronics. They launched a major remerchandising campaign and converted Musicland's on-cue concept of rural stores to the Sam Goody brand, reducing its position in books and moving more into video games and DVD. The store faced strong competition, particularly from websites like Amazon.com, which was founded in 1994 and provided a wider selection than the store-based Media Play. Therefore, despite Best Buy's major efforts, they failed to generate the results they were looking for with Musicland, losing $85 million in 2002. As a result, they put the company up for sale and were likely just weeks away from liquidating the entire chain when they found a buyer in Sun Capital Partners of Boca Raton, Florida. Sun Capital Partners acquired the company in a cash-free transaction in exchange for acquiring Musicland's debt and leases. Sun Capital attempted to get the company back to basics, but in December 2005 they announced the closure and liquidation of all remaining Media Play stores. In December 2005, Minnetonka, Minnesota-based Musicland Group, which owned Media Play, announced it would close all 61 stores by the end of January 2006 and refocus on its Sam Goody and Suncoast chains. In 1967, traveling salespeople from Melville's Thom McAn shoe business noted a wide-open market for young men's clothing, which gave birth to the idea of starting a young men's clothing and shoe store. Market research reportedly found that chess and auto racing were popular interests of young men. The first Chess King branch opened in the Dedham Mall in Dedham, Massachusetts, in March 1968. In 1970, the New York Times described the store's concept as teen male apparel dress shops whose stores are highly identifiable, with bold coloring and designs aimed at appealing to the 12 to 20 male market. 5 additional locations were opened in 1968, and 21 more in 1969. By late 1972, it had already grown to about 150 locations. By 1978, it had 300 locations. And by 1984, it had grown to over 500 stores. Chess King also experimented with 3 spin-off specialty stores in the late 1980s and early 1990s. The first, named Free Fall, carried designer labels for men and women and was geared toward higher-end, designer, brand names. The second, named the B Club, carried activewear for both men and women. The third, named Garage, had a 1950s-inspired decor along with a Nash Metropolitan automobile in most locations. The retailer was successful through the 1980s as a purveyor of wild 1980s fads and fashion, but changing fashion trends contributed to the chain falling on hard times at the beginning of the 1990s. Melville would agree to sell Chess King in March 1993 to Maryland-based Merry-Go-Round Enterprises, with the sale being finalized in May of that year. In January 1994, MGRE filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. In November 1995, the Chess King chain closed. In 1950, childhood friends Charles E. Carples, a Sage Allen manager, and Brown Thompson buyer Stanley W. Vogel each borrowed $5,000 to co-found Casual Corner, opening its first retail store that April Fool's Day in West Hartford, Connecticut. The first shop was 750 square feet and used poles, beams, and nets from old tobacco barns, and employed the founder's spouses as staff. Casual Corner broke tradition with retail conventions of the day, allowing women to physically browse clothing and try on items in fitting rooms, rather than encasing apparel behind glass. The store's name was chosen, in part, to reflect a more casual shopping experience than was typical of the era. In its first year, company sales were $45,000. A decade later, annual revenue had increased to $2 million. In 1969, annual sales were reported as $14 million. Casual Corner was sold to United States Shoe Corporation in 1970, when the chain included 20 stores. Co-founder Vogel became president of the company's specialty retail division, retiring a decade later. A year after acquisition by US Shoe, the chain opened its 25th store and continued to grow rapidly after that. Many of the original stores were constructed by George Zunner III of West Hartford, including those in Warwick and Providence, Rhode Island, Boston and Springfield, Massachusetts, Buffalo, New York, and at least one store in Ohio. Under US Shoe's ownership, Casual Corner became the foundation of a larger holding company, Women's Specialty Retailing Group. During its market height, in 1989, US specialty retailing included over 1,500 stores nationwide. In April 1995, Luxottica purchased US Shoe for $1.4 billion with the goal of acquiring its Lens Crafters division. Losses of $22 million were reported that second quarter. In October 1995, Luxottica spun off the Women's Specialty Retailing Group, renamed Casual Corner Group, to Italian-controlled P. La Leonardo Finanziaria S.r.l., a Delaware company operated by Luxottica founder Leonardo Del Vecchio and his family. With 525 stores operating in 2000, Casual Corner closed its remaining locations in late 2005, after selling them to a liquidator, due to increased competition. The company was launched in 1993 by two Yale University graduates. One company focus was its Gen Y understanding, as reflected in its use of the internet for furthering brand identity. The company was acquired by Alloy Incorporated in 2003 for $50 million. The combined company had annual catalog, internet, and retail sales of $300 million. It also had a database of over 20 million names, constituting 30% to 40% of U.S. consumers who were 12 to 18 years old. Alloy then spun off the company in 2005. In January 2013, HRSH Acquisitions LLC bought Alloy Incorporated, now being marketed as Alloy Apparel, for $3.7 million in cash. HRSH also assumed $3.1 million in liabilities. On December 5, 2014, it announced that it had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in the United States Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of New York, and would be liquidating all 95 stores. Shortly after, its shares fell more than 80% to 2 cents. Steve Russo of Fab/Starpoint acquired the brand for $2.5 million, and in August 2015, reopened the store with an online-only presence, but this was unsuccessful. Online fashion company Dolls Kill later licensed the Delia's name and relaunched it as a sub-brand in November 2018, with its clothes available online and through pop-ups in Los Angeles and San Francisco. The company was founded by Philip Brownick and Aaron Weiner, who opened their first store under the name Joy Hosiery in Philadelphia in 1932. Joy Hosiery initially sold reasonably priced hosiery, lingerie, and foundations in a wide variety of styles. In 1939, newly available nylon stockings were added to its inventory. The company expanded in the Philadelphia area in the 1950s. The company co-founder Philip Brownick's son, Marvin Brownick, became more involved in the management of the company after joining in 1961. Co-founder Aaron Weiner's son, Warren Weiner, followed suit in 1965. During this time the company observed the new phenomenon of suburban growth and construction of shopping malls. They decided to open stores in several locations, make the stores larger, and offer more merchandise. In the 1970s, Marvin Brownick and Warren Weiner closed most of the neighborhood stores and focused on opening larger stores in shopping malls. The chain was renamed to Deb Shops and refocused on women's and girls' clothing. Deb Shops acquired Atlantic Book Stores in 1995. In 1998, it operated 18 Atlantic Book outlets, including 12 largely seasonally operated small Atlantic Book shops in Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania and New Jersey resort towns, along with 6 larger Atlantic Book warehouses carrying a full line of book titles and magazines, and reported combined retail sales of $205.1 million. The company was listed on the NASDAQ exchange under the ticker symbol DEBS. However, it was removed from the exchange after being acquired in 2007 by the investment firm of Lee Equity Partners for $395 million, or $28.45 per share. The company parent DSI Holdings filed for bankruptcy on June 27, 2011. They filed for bankruptcy again on December 4, 2014. On January 7, 2015, they announced that they would close all 295 stores. The final sales happened on March 30, 2015. By September 2015, the company returned as an online-only retailer selling plus-size clothing. They shut down their website at the end of 2018 in December without warning. The last posts from the company's social media were about sales in November and December of 2015. In 1937, the company opened as a single store in Waterbury, Connecticut. It gradually expanded to over 350 warehouse-like outlets, based in 36 states. All through the mid-1950s, the Robert Hall shop launched on 2725 5th Street Avenue in Huntington. The company already has retail facilities in Portsmouth, Ohio, and Morgantown. Robert Hall produced its clothing in the U.S., mostly the lower Hudson Valley near Poughkeepsie and in North Carolina. Ultimately, the offshoring of clothing production in the 1970s doomed the company when it failed to follow suit and was undercut by retailers like Kmart and other similar department stores. These competitors offered only ready-to-wear garments, whereas Robert Hall offered tailoring and customer services to assure customers that the affordable garments they purchased actually fit them and could last a lifetime. In July 1977, after losing more than $100 million in 3 years, Robert Hall's parent company, United Merchants and Manufacturers, filed for bankruptcy citing losses in the Robert Hall chain. All 367 Robert Hall stores were closed and inventory was auctioned off. The Robert Hall business was purchased from the UMM bankruptcy by Stephen Watstein, who managed to do it with its own assets then liquidated it. All 367 Robert Hall stores buildings were sold for $35 million. In 1982, Jacob Schwab died at the age of 90 in Manhattan. Bailey & Kitchen, as it was originally known, was founded at 136 Chestnut Street, Philadelphia, on September 20, 1832, by Joseph Trowbridge Bailey and Andrew B. Kitchen. The partnership was dissolved in November 1846. It was reformed with new partners as Bailey & Company in 1841, and on March 1, 1878, again re-established as Bailey Banks & Biddle. From about 1852 to 1862, the company made its own silver. They were principally supplied by Taylor & Lorry before 1852, and from about 1862 to 1870, by George B. Sharp. After 1870, they resold silver from a variety of manufacturers. At the turn of the century, Bailey Banks & Biddle was commissioned by the U.S. government to update the Great Seal of the United States. Its design today remains the official version of the seal. The company also designed and made many of the military medals that are still used today, including the Congressional Medal of Honor, the Silver Star, the Bronze Star and the first 40,000 Purple Hearts awarded, as well as class rings for West Point and Annapolis. In 1962, Bailey Banks & Biddle became a part of the Zale Corporation. Zale opened many Bailey Banks & Biddle stores in numerous cities. In 2007, Zale Corporation sold the 65-store jewelry chain to Finley Enterprises. Finley Enterprises filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in August 2009, and Bailey Banks & Biddle was relaunched as a private company by the new owners in the spring of 2010. The new owners bought the name and 8 original locations. They did not honor guarantees on any items purchased prior to their ownership, as all prior warranties were voided with the dissolution of Finley Enterprises. The company utilizing the name Bailey Banks & Biddle declared bankruptcy in November 2019. At the time, the company was reduced to one store located in Houston, Texas. The remaining inventory was seized for back taxes, interest and penalties and sold at auction in June 2020. The website for Bailey, Banks & Biddle leads to Finley as of March 2023 with a copyright dated 2020. Best & Company was a department store founded in 1879 by Albert Best in New York City. The company initially sold clothing for infants and children, but later expanded to women's clothing and accessories. It was known for its tastefully styled and proper women's clothes and its sturdy children's wear. Philip Laboutier served as president during the late 1930s. The store had expanded to 20 branches by 1966, when the company was acquired by McCrory's, who also operated Lerner Shops and S. Klein. In late 1970, McCrory's liquidated the company. At the time of its closing, the store had 1,200 employees.
If you have any fond memories, please indicate it at the comments below. Thanks for watching, subscribe and like.